Okay,
How's
okay, yeah.
everything by you?
Very good. Yeah, I mean, not very good, but
Yeah.
it's okay. The things are okay here. São Paulo, it's like New York. It's a big city, so the biggest problem in Brazil is in São Paulo, like in United
Hmm.
States, it's New York. So, but we're moving on.
Yeah. I mean, you seem like you've been able to keep pretty busy during this time. Have you been able to like have a pretty good routine with your day, doing things that you
Yes.
maybe would usually do?
Yes, yes. Actually, I'm doing more stuff now than when I'm training because right now because I start to think about other stuff to do. So I start a YouTube channel in English and in Portuguese, two different ones. So that's a lot of thing, to put content and stuff. So that's one thing. Then I start to organize some courses that I want to do in the future, BJJ courses. And so, it's a lot of work also. And I've been doing a lot of lives. And also, I'm starting a podcast, so I'm doing interviews.
Yeah.
I've been pretty busy. Actually, I trying right now to don't be just doing this kind of computer work, trying to do training more. So I'm
Hmm.
doing like punching the bag in the morning in my garage and doing some weights that I have here also because I think it's a good training for me when I stop to fighting to be able to balance the both worlds, the more physical world and because from the last 20 years I've been just in this physical part.
Yeah.
And right now, I when I go into this more like mental thing of computer and this kind of thing, I'm kind of don't know yet how to balance, so I end up doing too much. Like when I start jiu-jitsu, you don't know well how to balance your routine. So it's a good way to learn right now.
Yeah. I feel like this is a good opportunity. Like obviously this time is not enjoyable. We'd rather be, training and doing our routine, but you kind of have to
Yes,
find the positives in it, right? Where
of
like for
course,
me, I miss training, but I realized I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to kind of
exactly.
focus on other things outside the mat. I feel like when we train, sometimes we can be very one dimensional, and not really be able to focus on things outside of training. Where I even notice that I feel I'm not very well rounded, but this is kind of giving me an opportunity to focus on different things. And it sounds like for you, like when we leave this, when we go back to normal, we'll actually be better in other ways because of it.
For sure, everybody knows that it's very hard to say that because people don't understand right now, and they maybe would criticize me, but everybody knows that we grow when we have struggles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we grow in jiu-jitsu. That's how we grow in life. And when you change everything that you used to do, like you have a routine, you have everything that you do every day. Like for you go every day to Marcelos Academy, you do the training, the gi training, and then the no gi training, and every day, and then you give classes, then you do your conditioning. You do every day the same things. So it's good sometimes to get away from your routine, to be more creative and find out other things that you like to do you always want to do but you never had time, you don't allow yourself this time. I know some guys who works with creative stuffs. They if they can, they take sometimes a month or 2 months or 3 months, or if they really can, like 6 months off doing something else just to come back more creative. And right now we kind of force it on that, and so it's hard, of course, for everybody, especially people that are struggling with money and this kind of things. But there is the good side of that if you health,
Yeah, a
of
lot of
course.
people
Yeah.
are concerned with just like, oh, there's nothing to do. They kind of feel like they're not getting being productive, but there's always ways to improve and to make something happen and to stay productive. For me, like kind of sounding like you, I still find myself at the end of the day being like, man, I haven't really had much of a chance to sit for very long because maybe
Yeah.
I'm home more, but I feel like I've been able to, adapt and just fill my schedule just with different things, So that's what we have to do.
Yeah, actually, for you, I think you're very lucky that happens in your life when you're young,
Mm.
because I was pretty much like, I see you training, you're very methodic, and you very perseverance. You train a lot, more than other guys. When I see you at Marcelo, you train a lot, and you always training, and the training ends and you keep going. So I was exactly like that, and that's good in one part, but sometimes you get so much narrow, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you get just let me it's hard to explain in English, but let me explain. When I was younger, I thought the only thing I could do is jiu-jitsu if I want to get better. So I
Yeah.
didn't do anything else. And I think, after years and years, I understand that sometimes you do something else, like let's say, play some guitar, or do something else. It's not just nice, but is important for your development, even in jiu-jitsu, because
Mm.
the cross activities are important for development of jiu-jitsu. Like sometimes the Russian wrestlers, they go playing football, or soccer to train. Sometimes the basketball players go do something else, and this cross activity training, or opens. It's hard to explain, but opens your mind, and for you, I think it's good because you're still young and you're very methodic, like I was, and I still would be a great tool now to change a little bit this.
No,
I,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I think that's the way, to get better. But sometimes we can open some concessions to other stuff, and that's something that I learned from one of my best friends in Brazil, Alex Atala. He's one of the best chefs in the world. He been at Marcelo train.
Yes.
He
Yes.
works with culinary, so he's voted number 4 in the world. His restaurant at number
Wow.
one, yeah, by the other chefs in like a few years ago. And he's a guy who taught me that, not saying, but by example, because he's great on his profession. He's also go to the gym every day. Of course, he could do that just when you know he already established himself, but he goes every day to the academy. He became good in jiu-jitsu. Before that, he was doing diving, fishing, how you call, like spear fishing, and he's
Yes.
very
Yeah.
good on that. And he's very good in a lot of things in fishing, not just spear fish, but regular fishing. So I think we can have another passions, and try to exceed on that. It's not gonna hurt the jiu-jitsu, because before I used to think that I need to be focused just in jiu-jitsu, nothing else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not gonna be so good like I can. And that's what this pandemic help us, because force us to do something else, and to try to be good in something else. And like you are very good in what you do, so if you do something else right now, you're gonna be trying to be very good too. And that's a good side of the thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I've definitely found like the positives in that for sure.
Uh-huh.
And I've even noticed recently that like just training jiu-jitsu and not having anything else outside of it has its downsides as well to even trying to
Mm-hmm.
improve your jiu-jitsu, you know. Was
Mm-hmm.
was there like a certain time that you discovered that? Like, was there a certain point where you're like, man, all this training I'm doing, it's almost can be detrimental in its own ways, where you kind of felt like you had to find a bit more of a balance?
Yeah, I think that happens very much when I have a very very bad staph infection in my shoulder back in 2014. So
Okay.
it's not so long ago.
Hmm.
And after that, I start to think about my life more, and I start to think about this life is a life that we can achieve more stuff, not just one thing. Even thinking about timing that I spend with my family, and trying to be good in something else that I like, or at least enjoy something that I like. And I still, that's not gonna hurt my focus on jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
As soon as as far as I can go to the training and be really focused when I need to be, but I can do something else other times too.
Yeah. I almost felt like by training so much, I wasn't enjoying the training. I was just there
Hmm.
so much and putting in so much work that it like it felt more like a job. But when I
Yeah.
gave myself the opportunity to kind of have a balance, have a social life, meet new people when you
Mm-hmm.
can and when you're not stuck inside,
Uh-huh.
I felt like I performed better because I would go into training like feeling better about myself or better about being more well-rounded. You kind of felt the same in a certain way.
Yeah, that's for sure. When you, especially, it's my characteristic to be to put too much pressure on myself. So when I after this shoulder problem that I was in and out the hospital many times, and in one point I was thinking, man, maybe I could die of that because they didn't find out what was I was having. The fever were coming back, coming back, coming back. So in one point I said, I said I need to, like I said, enjoy, life, not just be thinking about jiu-jitsu all day. And when I came back to training, I remember I came back much more relaxed, and that was not detrimental to my training because I still
Yeah.
with the same will to win, the same will to learn. I just was able to be less anxious during the fights and during the training, and that was good.
Yeah, yeah, I find that to be interesting. So, I mean, during this time, like, I feel like it's a little different between MMA fighters and like jiu-jitsu competitors. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I feel like jiu-jitsu kind of goes all year round, but for MMA, you guys have certain camps. I mean, would
Yes.
this period of time kind of be like a certain time that you have off, or what would a routine normally be like after? It can't be like this, but would it be at least something close to
Yeah.
what you're going through
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, some people they do that, the most fighters, but I come from jiu-jitsu, and that's what I was talking to Fabio Gurgel one day, and Fabio said, the difference between you, Verdun, and the other guys is you always in camp, you always training, and that's me, because I came from jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu background, and we train all year round, so there's no
Yeah,
seasons. And what I do is like after fight, normally I take 1 week off or 10 days, and then I come back really easy today before I would, I remember when I fought the world champion as a blue belt in 1999. Monday I was training already, I
yeah,
fought on Friday, and Monday I was training. But now I know that it's important for my body, especially my age, to have some recovery. So after the fight, I will be like 10 days doing nothing physically. And then I come back doing little weights for a week or so. And then I come back do one training a day, like can be weights or jiu-jitsu or boxing. And then, after 3 weeks, sometimes a little bit more than that, I come back, doing twice a day, but not so hard like during camp. And
yeah.
then we start to increase again, and after a month or so we in the normal training again. But we at least for me, I don't like to stop. I just let drops a little bit and start to
Of
raise
course.
again.
I mean, I've never been in like I used to do like kids boxing before I started doing
Uh-huh.
jiu-jitsu. When I was like 10, I boxed a little bit, but obviously it's not nearly the same. I don't know from experience, but that progression that you need, like, or like that time off and then like slow start, is that
Hmm.
more precautionary, or are you still really feeling it after a fight for a while?
The at least I cannot say to everybody, but at least in the UFC, because the competition is so high and everybody's so good, you 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 it's pretty tough, the preparation, not just physically but mentally. So we need to take this off days after fighting, especially
Yeah,
because in jiu-jitsu it's hard to take these off days because you have a championship 2 weeks from
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
next one is 2 weeks away. So it's very hard. But in MMA you have this chance because the next fight will be like in 3-4 months, sometimes even more. So if you have this situation, you gotta take advantage of that, and let your body recover. And even for my jiu-jitsu guys in Brazil, what I say to them, it's very hard because I never thought like that when I was a fighter, a jiu-jitsu fighter. But
Hmm.
it's important you pick up the main competitions that you really want to win and focus on that and do your schedule. Let's say you want to win the European, the Pan American, the Worlds, and the nationals. So we schedule to pick in that competitions. That's what I think is the most important. And you don't need, of course, you don't like to lose, but I mean, if you're fighting like, let's say, a New York Open, and you should see that like if it's not your goal, you should see like that's like a preparation for the Worlds or something. Or I mean, New York Open is after the Worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a
Yeah,
preparation for
but
something
before.
else. So yeah, so it's like you can use some championships like a Cuban boxers, they do that. They use some championships. So let's say sometimes some Brazilian boxers, they go and fight against some, Olympic champions in Cuba, and they win, and they say, man, I want that guy get the gold medal. And then they go to the Olympic Games or Pan American Games, and they lose to the same guy. Because the guy,
Yeah,
he was using that championship just to keep the rhythm. And I think in
yeah.
jiu-jitsu, we don't do that. We want to win all the championships. And as an athlete, you want to win everything, but you should understand that sometimes if you want to pick in the right championships, you need to use other champ and don't care too much if you're not, in your peak for the other championships, the less important ones.
That makes sense. So you're saying kind of use it as an opportunity to see where your game's at, to maybe try new things in a competition environment. It doesn't
Exactly.
need you shouldn't put so much emphasis. Of course, we want to win, but
Yeah.
the goal should be more performance driven rather than results driven.
Exactly. It's like you always want to win. Let me tell one thing. When I was training with Marcelo, we trained together back in the day at Fabio Academy. Every day I would go to the academy. I would arrive there and said, man, today, not every, sometimes I was so tired. I said, man, I hope Fabio don't put me with Marcelo today because we know we are the biggest competition for each other every day as a brown belt. And
Yeah,
that every day Fabio would say, Demian, go with Marcelo. I said, oh my God, again. And that was pretty hard. And you don't want to lose, and he doesn't want to lose. So, we are friends, but we are competing. So if you go to a championship that is not so big and it's not your goal, that championship, you should see like a luxury training, a training. It's like a training in the academy, but with a judge, with the points. So you go, you don't want to lose. But what I mean is like if it's not your goal to win that championship, sometimes you don't change too much the training during the week. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you keep doing the training because your goal is like 2 months from that championship. So you keep thinking about the end of the line there, and you do the training for that championship. So maybe you can take one day off before this championship that is not so important, but you don't change too much. As the opposite when you go to the main championship, then you have all the change, and the fight week is different. You're gonna drop a little bit more the training before the Worlds, and we're gonna do what you like, more drills, or you want to recover, you want to be more prepared for that championship.
yeah. I always remember feeling that like during the season there would be a bunch of tournaments leading up to Worlds, and for me, I'm always thinking about Worlds. I'm always training for that. That's what always would be the preparation before. So, say for
Hmm.
example, like a New York Open, I wouldn't be you know tapering or resting before it like I would for Worlds. I'm like, no, I'm going to go in
Exactly.
and almost
Exactly.
want to. You almost want to think about using it as like another day of training, another opportunity to learn, or as a build up
Yeah,
to
and
like
and that's new, and guys like you that are smart competitors do, but not everybody does that. And in my time, nobody would do that. You
yeah
go to a Paulista championship, where it's like the state championship here, with the same mentality. Then you go to the Worlds, and that's not the way. I think the way to do is like you go to the Paulista championship, the state championship, using that as a tool to get better to the Worlds.
hmm. Were you guys always competing pretty much every weekend when you were competing jiu-jitsu like regularly? Was it an every
No, there,
weekend thing or
yeah, there was not so many championships like nowadays, but
okay.
I remember Marcelo and I were the guys who used to compete more in the academy. And when I stopped to compete when I left Fabio, I kind of didn't compete too much like I used to, because Fabio would force me a lot to do, but I started training MMA also and mixed stuff. So sometimes I wouldn't compete too much. And I think one of the reasons Marcelo got so good because he kept that rhythm, like competing, maybe twice a month in that time, because it was the maximum we could do. There was no that many championships, but Marcelo keep going and keep competing a lot. I think that's one of the reasons he developed so. Besides his, his talent and his work ethic, I think the competition side is very important if you want to develop as a competitor, of course.
Yeah, almost like maybe it just helps you mentally, where you feel like you just go into a tournament. When you compete so often, you just feel comfortable going in there. It's like second nature after a while. Whereas maybe
Exactly.
competing every once in a while, you're never really as comfortable being in a competition type environment. Would you say that was probably a big thing?
Yeah, for sure. It's everybody who competes knows that you can go to the academy and train. Let's say go to your academy there and train with Mateus. Mateus is a pretty tough guy, but he's one of the best in the world, and it's pretty tough train with him in the academy. But if you go compete with him, it's totally different, because everybody will be more cautious, taking
Mm-hmm.
uh, be more aware of things. Everybody will be more not so relaxed. So it's a different fight. Even with the same guy, it's a different fight than when you train in the academy. So that's why it's important to be in the championships as much as you can if you want to be a competitor.
Yeah, I mean, so I wanted to know, like, was MMA something that you always planned on getting into, or was it kind of based on circumstance? I was talking to who was I talking to recently? I'm forgetting who I talked to recently. He basically got so I've been doing these chats a lot, but
Uh,
one MMA fighter was basically saying it was just more based on like financial situation and other things because there wasn't as much money in jiu-jitsu
uh,
a little while back. Do you think MMA was something you always wanted to get into, or is it something kind of based out of necessity at a certain point?
no, was something that I always
Okay.
wanna be. When I start training jiu-jitsu, actually I watch the first MMA fight here in Brazil. I was a teenager back in 1991 or 92. I saw Renzo, fighting here in São Paulo. Renzo, Ralph, his brother, and Marcelo Bering, who already died. I saw them fighting in São Paulo in a venue that I fought many times after that. But I was a kid, and I saw that, and I said I want to do that one day in my life. So when I started jiu-jitsu was because I wanted to do MMA or Vale Tudo in that time, or no, any HB. So my goal was always to do that, because I thought MMA is the biggest challenge as a fighter. I want to be involved with this challenge. I always like to challenge myself.
So was there like a certain point that you wanted to get to in jiu-jitsu? I know some people get into MMA early on, they kind of train jiu-jitsu for a little bit and then they go
Hmm.
straight to MMA, but you kind of went the whole jiu-jitsu route. You had like a long career. Was there like a certain point or a certain goal that you wanted to accomplish first? And then
Uh,
it was like, all right, MMA
uh,
after that, or is it all just part of the process?
I think was kind of natural, because Fabio Gurgel Academy in that time was not focused on MMA. Like if I would start, let's say, in the Carson Grace Academy, that late became BTT, Brazilian Top Team, for sure I would start MMA much before, because they were focused on that. Or let's say I started in Curitiba in Chute Box, the academy that launched like Vanderlei Silva and Mauricio Shogun and Anderson Silva, all these guys. But I started in an academy that was very driven to sport jiu-jitsu. That was Alliance, at Fabio. So that
Mm-hmm.
was not natural. And probably if I would stay there, I was doing an interview with Fabio these days. Fabio invited me to do an interview with him. And he asked me what he would think would happen to me. What I was thinking would help to me if I would stay in Alliance at that time. And I thought I wouldn't never go to MMA, because my life was getting, much better. I was doing some privates. I started to do some seminars. So, I was kind of improving my life, not just as a sportsman, but also financially. And so probably I wouldn't take the risk
Yeah.
if I wouldn't, you know. But when you leave again, when we have you're not comfort anymore, like I was at Fabio, you know, surrounded by everything that I need for sport jiu-jitsu. So when I left, then you know, they throw me again in the environment that I was not so comfortable, and I want, you know, I always want to do MMA, so was the right environment for me at that time.
Yeah. How long ago did you start MMA? How many years ago was that?
Uh, Actually, I fought my first MMA fight. That, you know, that one is not on Sherdog. I was 18 years old. That's back in 1996.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's. Uh, if you want to see this fight, you go to UFC docs, you know, DOC, like documentaries,
Yes.
ufcdocs.com.br, and it's for free there, but it's in Portuguese. I don't think they have subtitles yet, but it's a documentary about my life. If you search for Nascidos para o Combate, it's like Born to Fight, season 2. Episode 4, I'm there. It's just, you know, put your password, what your email, and you get free access in this platform the UFC have in Brazil, ufcdocs.com.br, and then you can see this fight that I when I was 18 years old. I think it's the only place. And then I fought again when.
Uh-oh. Hope it comes back.
Sorry. Then I
You're
fought
good. You're
again.
good.
I was at Fabio in 2001. And then I fought again just end of 2005, then end of 2006, and then I didn't stop anymore.
Okay. So it was a little like inconsistent at first, and then after a while, you just committed to that fully. Was it? I remember I was actually at the ADCC that you won in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
like, how old was I? I was like 14 or 15. I remember you winning that. Was that kind
Mm-hmm.
of like after that? Was that the more the transition you made at that point?
It's a little bit before that, because
Okay, a
that's
little bit
your.
before that. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because, you know, the inconsistency is because I was fighting jiu-jitsu at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But 2006 was the transition. In
Okay.
2006, I remember that uh, in 2006, I remember that I always, since 99, I always get a good result in the Worlds, or when the World Cup started in the World Cup. So, you know, 99, I was second as a world champion in IBJJF. 2001 as a purple, 2001 I won as a brown belt. And if you check there, they will see second place, but because we hit our head, me and my opponent at the final, and both cut the heads, so they didn't do the final. They gave gold medals for both, but we
Huh.
did. Yeah, we did. That's the only time in the history. We did paper,
Wow.
scissors, and stone, you know, to see who would get the points for their team. And I was
Yeah.
Alliance, and this guy was from Godoy Academy, and
Wow.
and he won. So that's why, you know, if you check there in 2001, he's champion. But both, you know, they gave gold medals for both. And then in 2002, I didn't fight the IBJJF, just the World Cup, and I won. Then 2003, I fought both. I won the World Cup and lost the IBJJF. 2004, I didn't fight any of those because I hurt my knee. 2005, I won the World Cup against Jacaré in the final, and I
Hmm.
got third in the IBJJF. I lost to Braulio in the semifinal
Okay.
uh, 1 week after. And then 2006 was the only year that I didn't place because I
Yeah.
was in this transition. So what happens? We had a team that we create here, Braza team, and, you know, there was all these great guys like André Galvão was with us, and Léo Vieira, Rodrigo Comprido, and all the guys who became, you know, who did Atos now, like Ramon Lemos, all these guys, and
Hmm.
all these guys like Robert Drasdale, the guys that are Zenit right now, and the guys from Checkmate right now. They are all in this team, Braza.
Yeah.
And, we did a camp for the Worlds. It was very nice. We did a camp in Poços de Caldas, the same city Marcelo, trained with Paulão before training with Fabio, the city that Marcelo really show up to the world. He's in a country city in Minas Gerais, the state of São Paulo. And I remember I was like a trainer. I planned all the training. I trained with the guys, but I remember I was like the guy who scheduled all the training, and I was running the trainings.
Yeah.
The team did very well. The team won, but I lost. Maybe, because I was so focused on training everybody. I remember André won, Robert won, everybody won. André
Yeah.
Galvão, Robert Drosdale, but I lost. I didn't fight well. But after like 3 months, I had 3 fights in the same night in Brazil, MMA fights in a
Yeah.
event here, and I was the totally underdog. It was crazy because everybody would say Demian never gonna win. I had just 2 MMA fights or 3, and I fought all these guys. They were already like very experienced, and then I won 3 fights in the same night. I
Okay.
remember the first fight was midnight, second fight was 2 a.m., and third fight was 4 a.m. And finally I won. And then I said, man, I want to do that for sure. And when I went to Abu Dhabi, one of my dreams was to win Abu Dhabi, and I got second in 2005. So in 2007, I said, this year I'm going to win. But I had a fight scheduled 2 weeks after an MMA fight. So that's exactly the transition. So I fought ADCC 2007, I won. Then 2 weeks after, I had a MMA fight, Grace Fighting Championship in Ohio. Then I won. And then I got the contract with the UFC.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the transition, or you were able to kind of balance doing ADCC and MMA just because no-gi and wrestling
Yeah,
is
it's
involved.
easier, of course. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easier than if you gi, it's harder, it's different. But ADCC, I remember I was training to this ADCC, and I was doing some boxing training, some bag, hitting bag training, because that's not gonna be hurt too much. But my focus was to win ADCC. That was my dream since I started, and that
Yeah.
was the goal, much more than, because how I said always my dream was to fight MMA. So when the ADCC started back in '98, I saw all these guys like Fabio, Léo Vieira, the guys from my academy fighting there. I said I want to win that one day, and the dream was something that was very hard because they didn't invite me to the trials in 2003, so I wasn't able to fight the one that Marcelo won for the first time. So 2005, I had to do 2 trials because there was some, they changed the trials in Brazil. Brazilian trials some were invited and some they need to get the spot in the trial. So for the first one, imagine I won like pretty tough guys, including Braulio Estima, who late, after, many years, he won the absolute, right?
Yeah.
And I won against him. And then next week, there was the other trial against the guys who were invited. So I need to do 2 trials. That's like 2 months and a half after a knee surgery that I have, here in my knee. And then I fought Margarida, one of the fights. Margarida was like the phenomenal of
At
Brazil.
ADCC?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
trials.
Okay. Oh, at
The
the trials.
trials.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I won the trials. So I said, man, I'm going to win this shit. But then, I lost to Jacaré in the final for one point. And then this was in my mind for 2 years. And I finally came back and won the 2007 one.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, like I used to collect all the Gracie magazines.
Yes.
When I picked up like the first one when I was out in Brazil. I was at Worlds at 2004. But anyways,
Uh-huh.
I collected them for years, and I
Uh-huh.
remember I picked up the one that covered that ADCC 2007. And
Yeah.
that year I went to Worlds and I had everybody sign it. I might have had you. I need to find that magazine. I think I might have even found you too. I don't.
Uh-huh.
I found everyone
Nice.
that
Nice.
got everyone to sign it. I'm gonna have to try to find that.
Nice.
But now I got myself off track. You seem like someone that knows like all your results from matches. You've been competing for years, and yet you're able to name every tournament that you did. Were you someone that always like pretty much kept track of like all your results, like had it logged in somewhere?
I have in my mind, but I wish I had this written down. I remember a friend of mine. He was very, very good guy. Actually, he was, very tough, and he would be one of the best in the world, but he got hurt. I'd say I was a purple belt and he stopped it. But I remember he was, my worst train before Marcelo come to São Paulo. He beat Marcelo actually in one internal championship in Alliance internal championship. He was so good, this guy. And this guy, I remember he write down all these championships and how he win or how he lose. Normally he always win, but
Yeah.
when he lose, how it was by points and by, let's say, one sweep or two sweeps, or when he win, okay, I pass the guard and then I go to the back and I submit with this. But I never did that, would be very nice to have all these records, but everything that I know, is in my head.
Yeah. They seem to have that pretty good.
Yeah.
I was always curious because I would see Marcelo's a good amount, and I was wondering, like, what's the training like different? I could tell that you kind of train differently. You train at a different speed because you're getting ready for MMA.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes even when we trained one time, I'm like, man, I feel like he's giving me a lot right now. I'm pretty sure I'm not able to do this or that to him that easily. What is kind of your whoop.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? I just moved.
Yeah, it's getting better
Can you
now.
hear me?
There we go. There we go.
Sorry. I just need to
I can hear
see
you now.
the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So
No, you're good. Yeah, we.
what happens is different, the goals in MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. So let's say what I realized when I go train now, MMA is like when I was training Jiu-Jitsu, I never would let the guy pass my guard. Let's say I
Yeah.
would spend all my energy because that's 3 points. That's too much to catch up.
Hmm.
So now what I realize, I'm much more relaxed when I play in guard because I don't worry about the guy pass my guard. I just don't want to, the guy get my back or mount. And I just don't want to get punched, of course. So if I go train if a guy that is just pure jiu-jitsu, sometimes he will pass my guard more often than, before, when I was just training jiu-jitsu. When I'm on top, sometimes if I don't pass the guard, also it's not a big deal because I know the most important is to control the situation and to get in the good spot to punch, because when you punch and use jiu-jitsu at the same time, then you open the space to pass the guard easily or to mount or do whatever you need. uh, so it's just, the different rules that sometimes kind of makes a little bit weird when you train with a guy who is more MMA guy and a guy who is more like a jiu-jitsu guy. So is the mindset, the mindset that you have when you're training.
Yeah. Was that a kind of like a adjustment you had to make at a certain point, or was it pretty easy transition for you, where
Yes.
you kind of knew from the get go, from the very beginning, like, okay, I'm gonna have to adjust my approach to training right away. Was pretty easy for you? You would say?
Yeah, I always train thinking MMA, but of course, let's say this example, as an example of the guard passing. Like in jiu-jitsu, you're gonna spend all your energy to don't let the guy pass your guard. In MMA, sometimes you don't care too much because let's say the guy is almost passing. You don't want to spend all your energy pushing the guy away or doing something else because
Mm.
first of all, you're gonna spend too much energy, and second, maybe when you try to replace, before he passes, you can get a lot of elbows and eat a lot of elbows and punches. So sometimes it's better to let the guy, if you really want to go pass, and then you replace in a safe situation, and you know how to be protected on the ground if he's past your guard, and don't let him mount and don't let him punch. So it's adaptation, but I think jiu-jitsu allowed us to do these adaptations pretty well. I think jiu-jitsu is a beautiful art because it's very adaptable to everything.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Was that kind of transition also kind of something welcoming as well? Because I can imagine, like, when you compete at a high level of jiu-jitsu, I remember my first year at black belt competing. I fought the same guy about 12, no, not 12 times, but maybe like 6 or 7 times,
Uh-huh.
fighting the same guys at the same tournaments with the same rule set. Got almost, I can imagine it would get kind of old after a while. As much as we enjoy jiu-jitsu, like it becomes a little repetitive sometimes. So was that like kind of start to
Yeah,
MMA kind of like almost like a breath of fresh air, like learning something new, changing up your training?
for
I'm
sure,
sure it's
for
something
sure.
you enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's one very nice thing because I love to learn, and I think all jiu-jitsu fighters they love to learn. All the high level jiu-jitsu fighters. That's why we like jiu-jitsu because you're learning every day. It's nothing something like boxing that you learn, but you just sharpening the same tools every day because jiu-jitsu is much more open, so you're learning every day. And but in one point, it's like you just do the same thing every day. You go train jiu-jitsu, maybe you do a little bit more stand-up, maybe you do something else, and then you do conditioning and jiu-jitsu, conditioning and jiu-jitsu, 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 conditioning. So when you train MMA, the nice thing is the dynamic of the the thing. You train jiu-jitsu in the morning, but then afternoon you can do some boxing, and then next day you have some jiu-jitsu more focus on wrestling, more stand-up jiu-jitsu. Then in the night you do some physical training, and then next day you do jiu-jitsu again, and then in the night you do some Thai boxing. So it's kind
Hmm.
of it's kind of exciting because it's like a new start. Like you said, it's a new thing, and every time you start something new, you get excited to learn and to develop stuff and learn how to use jiu-jitsu into that new sport. And the training is more dynamic and gives you more less repetitive stuff. You don't do same thing every day. There is too many things to do, too many things to train, which is it's nice, but it's tougher also because if you train less wrestling, you're gonna miss the jiu-jitsu. If you train a lot of jiu-jitsu, maybe you didn't do enough clinching, boxing, this kind of thing. So it's very tricky, but it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, but you just have to find that balance, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what was the biggest challenge? So it sounds like it was like a nice transition. Like it was
Hmm.
something that you enjoyed doing. It's like you said, it was something that you wanted to get into from the beginning. But going from jiu-jitsu to MMA, of course we agree that jiu-jitsu translates over to well to MMA if you use it
Hmm.
right. But what was probably the toughest part of that transition for you? Like if any jiu-jitsu people are looking to get into MMA, what was kind of the most difficult barrier to get through to feel comfortable in MMA?
In MMA, I think jiu-jitsu gives you a tool to feel pretty comfortable because it's between the combat sports or martial arts is the one that is more adaptable to MMA. All everything that the people did in jiu-jitsu, like the Grace family and the other people here in Brazil did to develop our martial art, is based on the using MMA. That's why when you fight in jiu-jitsu championship, the mount you get more points on the mount and back than when you sweep the guy or take down the guy, and you pin the guy means not too much, if you don't pass his guard because it's based on what is effective for a vale tudo, a MMA situation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to adapt. I think what is harder is when you get in an event like UFC is the professionalism of the thing. It's much more professional than jiu-jitsu championships, and you're gonna learn that you first of all, in jiu-jitsu you always have your partners to help you. In MMA, sometimes you need to spend money to bring people in and to travel to do some other things, and so you need to invest more money. And the professionalism of the thing is different. The way you
Mm-hmm.
train, the it's very hard if you're teaching at the same time like you can do in jiu-jitsu. You can do, but not as much. And so I think
Yeah.
is that's the hardest thing. The mindset and the attention that you get. Much more attention. So if you're in a big event, so you gotta learn how to deal with that and don't let this distract you. That's very important. All this social media, all this stuff.
There's just a lot more that goes into MMA. You have to kind of not only train differently, of course, but you have to, travel more for it. You have to work with different people. You have to bring in people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. Like for me, all I gotta do is pretty much just go to my gym and train all day and learn as much as I can. It's pretty much in one area that I have
Hmm.
to be, but you kind of have to go around a lot. You would say.
Yeah, and
Um,
jiu-jitsu is a small word compared to MMA, right? Because your word, like BJJ word, is close and we know each other, and it's like a community. So you get some attention, even when you were world champion or something. But the MMA is different, so you get so much opportunities that if you don't learn how to say no right away and to choose stuffs, you're gonna miss the the patch.
mhm. I understand. So I mean, with
Yeah.
with everything you do, you come up to New York a fair amount, and you'll train at Marcelo's. Cross train other places around there. What is it besides Marcelo being like an old teammate and friend of yours? Like, what gets you to come back to Marcelo's to train, even while you're getting ready for a big fight? Because for me, sometimes I would look from the outside. I'd be like, he's getting ready for an MMA fight, and granted, Marcelo is probably the best, but
Mhm.
we're not very MMA oriented school. It's very different
Yeah,
for
but I
jiu-jitsu.
think because my style of MMA, I use too much jiu-jitsu. I think it's good to be at a very high level academy like Marcelo's academy, and of course, I feel well there because Marcelo is my friend for so many years,
Mhm.
and the training is so good there that for me it's important, to be with my jiu-jitsu sharper, because if I train just with MMA guys, they will be more about holding and trying to stall me and punching me. But when I go to Marcelo, they try to kill me and submit me, and that's important for me to sharpen in my game. And of course, I don't want to do that so close to the fight because I want to be more MMA oriented when I'm more closer to the fight. But when I'm a little bit away from the fight, like 2 months or so, it's important for me, to sharpening my game.
Okay, I understand. And when you're here as well, do you go wrestling as well? I believe I've caught you on the
Yeah,
train a couple times coming back to Hoboken.
yeah, I go a lot. That's why I start to go to New York, because I first of all I start to train wrestling in Chicago in 2010 with
Okay.
Sean Bourmet, a guy who is now in Michigan University. He's like the wrestling head coach there. And when I need to, in 2012, I decided to come back to go train wrestling because I trained in 2010, 2011, then I stopped it. And then 2012, I said, I want to come back train with Sean. And Sean said, I'm at Michigan. I cannot, it's hard to come here. But I have a friend in Hoboken, Dave Esposito, and he has a great academy. He can, you can go there. And then I went there to Hoboken, and I met Cody also. That's my, one of my coaches, wrestling coach, and come to Brazil all the time. And we started a relationship. And that was great because I have a great train. I was pretty near Marcelo, and Marcelo was my friend. So I started to go, and do both. Of course, when I go to New York, my focus is more in wrestling, but I need to. It's great that I have Marcelo's academy there because I can go there and sharpening my jiu-jitsu.
And kind of like what you're saying, like you have to travel around more to be able to improve for MMA. You have to kind of go outside comfort zones. Were you just going to Chicago for a period of time just for wrestling exclusively?
Just for wrestling, yeah.
Wow.
I
So
was
coming all the
going
way from
there.
Brazil, right?
Yeah,
At that
actually,
time.
after Anderson fight, I felt that my wrestling was. I never really trained wrestling back in the day in Brazil, so I said, man, I want to start. And I had an affiliate academy, a friend of mine, Mark Turner, in Chicago, and he was teaching wrestling academy. The name was Overtime, and there was great wrestlers going there, like let's say Jake Herbert, the Olympian from United States were going there, and other guys from Canada. I said that's the right place to go, so I started to go there. I did, I think, 3 camps there.
Nice. Yeah, that's how you get better. You have to go all these different places.
Yeah,
So we got like 4 minutes left, and I'll give you 5 minutes. You said you needed to go after 5 minutes before.
yeah. I have an interview here actually.
Yeah, do you have to get ready? Now you have to switch it over to Portuguese after this?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Is that
yeah.
pretty easy to do, or do you start speaking
Now,
English and
now, now it is. Before was pretty hard. I remember when I fought Che or Sonny, it was the first time I gave an interview in English on the phone, on the telephone, because it's different when I see the guy's mouth, you know, and I can read, and it's very different when you do on phone. And plus was like British English. That for me is different because, you know, I'm more used to go to United States. I remember it was pretty scary to do this interview, but you know, it's just training and learning. It's very hard. Sometimes, you know, when I go to the UFC, I do a little bit in English, and then the other guy is in Portuguese, and then there's a guy in Spanish that want to do, and I can speak a little bit of Spanish, so I speak in Spanish. Sometimes you get a little bit confused, but you know, it's training.
What helped you with your English mainly? Was it just kind of coming to the U.S.
Yes.
And being around it enough that
I think seminars, you know, seminar when you go
seminars?
and give seminar, yeah, you give seminars. You wanna, and of course, I listen a lot of podcasts in English.
Hmm.
So that's important for me. Like I listen like long, like let's say Joe Rogan, like 2 hours podcast when I'm, you know, in my car going to the gym. So it's all in English, and I listen a lot of English podcasts or American podcasts. So that's, I think, helping with the vocabulary also.
Okay, it wasn't like anything really in school that would do it. It was mainly just kind of like immersing yourself in English that kind of helped.
That's right, when I really start to learn. When remember Fabio start to bring some guys from Finland to São Paulo, and I was living with a roommate, and Fabio said, hey, you want to put this guy in your house, he will pay something. And I said, okay, that's great, because you know, every money was welcome. We didn't have any money, so the guy was helping us, this Finnish guy start, and he stayed like 2 months in my house, and I didn't speak any English, so I need to talk a little bit with him. You know, it was a
Yeah.
small apartment, and then I start to, you know, learn a little bit. Then a couple of years later, I went to Finland for a seminar, and I remember I didn't speak well. I said, okay, let's go. I need, you know, to try. And then I stayed 3 weeks there in a friend's house, and start to learn, and you know, then it keep going.
You just kind of putting yourself in those situations
In
helps
the
you improve.
situation,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got like a minute left. I just want to say thank you for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. It was
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. It was great, and you know, anytime you need, and I'm very happy you're doing that, because you know, I think, like you said, it's a good time to try to do something else, to be to be productive. And like myself, you know, if you guys wanna follow my channel, Demian Maia channel in English, and that is Demian Maia Brazil also is in Portuguese. If you wanna learn some Portuguese also, you know, anytime, let's do it again.
See, I need to work on my Portuguese too, so I'll definitely do that. You'll be like my Joe Rogan then.
That is very good. The old Marcelos fight that just I have, because I had a friend who was recording fights for us when we are kids, or younger,
Hmm.
and I have Marcelos fight that nobody has. You know,
Oh, really? I'll
yeah,
have to check
I
that
have
out.
Marcelo. Yeah, there is so many good ones. Yeah,
All right, well, definitely check that out then for sure.
yeah. Okay,
But
okay.
hey, man, thank you so much and stay safe out there.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Bye. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.